On Monday, September 9th, 2013, the rain began to fall. After 2 days of persistent rain, it was apparent that this was no ordinary rain event. Roads began to flood, and Boulder Creek and St. Vrain River began to rise. By Wednesday night, flash floods were issued for all those living near the creek as the rain continued to pour and the creek began to rise. The city of Boulder sounded alarms around 10 p.m. on Wednesday, warning people to stay away from the dangerously rushing creek and to seek higher ground. People living near the creek were ordered to evacuate. Under normal conditions, Boulder Creek typically flows at a rate between 100 and 300 cubic feet per second. During the flood, gauges near the creek recorded a flow rate of 5,000 cubic feet per second. That's equivalent to 37,500 gallons of water per second. The flood was caused by an upper air low-pressure system cut off from the jet stream just west of here, which caused it to stall over the flood area for days. Moisture in the air came from the tropical Pacific. These conditions allowed it to rain consistently and a lot over the course of a week.
Why did this result in a flood?
So that's actually a really interesting question, because when we talk about flooding, we can talk about flash flooding that happens in minutes, and then huge river systems flooding that happen on weeks to month time scales. And in this event, we saw all of that happen. So while we sat here in Boulder and we had little thunderstorms and little small types of rain systems come through, we saw flash flooding happen right away because it just rained so hard over such a short amount of time. There was no place for the water to go.
Emergency responders quickly became busy as the streets turned into waterways, and people needed rescuing from their vehicles and homes. Kevin Vrans from the Rocky Mountain Rescue Group tells us of his rescue experiences firsthand.
How many injuries did you respond to during and after the flood?
So during the flood, we only responded to one injury. We responded to many other patients that were just stranded but not injured, so we evacuated a lot of people. The one injury was of a person who had gotten trapped in the river and had crawled out of the river, and he was probably hypothermic and maybe had some other injuries as well. He was considered trauma red at the time, so we have 3 trauma levels: trauma green, trauma yellow, and trauma red. We talk about those on the radio so that everybody that's responding to the mission knows the level of injury and they know whether they need to hurry up or they can go a little bit slower and more safe. But he was considered trauma red, so we had to get him out very quickly.
After the flood, people from Lyons and Boulder picked up garbage, appliances, electronics, and construction debris. Many homes, roads, and animal habitats were damaged. 20% of homes were destroyed because of heavy rainfall, which persisted for days. 6 people were reported dead. Many of the fatalities were from being captured and washed away by the rushing waters. 5 months later, people are still without their homes and hot water. Communities are working on rebuilding what the flood destroyed: their homes, roads, bridges, hiking trails, and animal habitats. One group in the Boulder community that has helped those affected by the flood get back on their feet is the Mudslingers. The Mudslingers are a group of volunteers who helped to clean up damaged houses after the flood. Many of the houses that they worked on had over 3 feet of mud in them. The group helped pump out the water out of the houses, tear out the rotting drywall, and remove mud from within the homes. They even helped homeowners take out waterlogged drugs.
What was the range of the most and least damaged house?
The most damaged houses we went into, a lot of them were just a total loss, and were ultimately condemned. We went into a lot of structures that were compromised, so like a wall might be ripped out, or there might be 8 feet of mud inside the house. We did our best to save property when we could, without obviously prioritizing property over our safety and the safety of our volunteers. And then we also went into houses that had like an inch of water in the basement. So it was a massive range.
That's a tricky question. So this flood in and of itself doesn't indicate anything about climate change. It is, however, consistent with what we would expect in a changing climate. So it's another small piece of evidence that we might be collecting, that when we look back in 100 years, this might be an event that adds to our understanding of climate change. But it wasn't unprecedented. We have seen big floods in Colorado before, so we can't say that this event was at all, for sure, impacted by climate change.
Even though one event, such as the Colorado flood, can't determine climate change, it may be possible that a changing climate may lead to more extreme events. More scientific research needs to be done to assess the consequences of changing climate. What remains a mystery is if we see more events like this one in our changing climate.